que mas romantic.
Hello and welcome to Olympic Dispatch by Skimo Gold, the premier podcast and YouTube show for ski mountaineering interviews and race analysis. The Olympics are rolling. We're moving towards the Skimo events on February 19th and 21st, and we are bringing you daily episodes to build your stoke in understanding about the sport. If you know Skimo and you've been into it for a while, heck yeah, Skimo's finally in the Olympics. And if you're just coming to the sport, that's great as well. We want to help you learn about this, about the players, and about just, man, why it's so cool. So if you think this is neat and intriguing, check out our content on audio and on YouTube and share it with your friends because it's, one of the best things about Olympics is we get to see these niche sports that we kind of forget about over the years, but then we come back and we just realize like, wow, this is cool. And that's what Skimo is. I am so excited for today's episode. Honestly, this is a special one. This is a special one to me on a personal level because I get to have a powerful conversation about something that's near and dear to my heart in my own work, and that is mental performance within the athletic space and also just within cultivating wellness in life. And I get to have that conversation with two people who I just love and appreciate. Number one is Cam Smith. You've probably heard of Cam. Cam is representing Team USA in the Olympics. He'll be doing the sprint race on February 19th and doing the mixed relay on February 21st with Anna Smith. Cam, he's a fantastic person. I've known him since he was in college over there at Western State in Gunnison, and just he's always been an incredible guy who exudes a joy and excellence, and for him that snowballs into performance at the highest level. Of course, here we are at the Olympics. And secondly, another guy I just really appreciate as a colleague and a friend, and even more so professionally. That's Dr. Pete Kadushin. Pete Kadushin has been in this mental performance space for a long, long time. He is a top academic expert. He's worked with the Chicago Blackhawks for many years now, helping their professional hockey players hone their mental games. He's worked in academia. He has a thriving practice on his own doing mental performance coaching with athletes and business people. And by the way, if you're interested in that, check him out, drkcoaching.com. The guy's incredible. And this, just the conversation we have today, it touches on so many great things. And one thing that stands out to me is the idea that as athletes, we can use our performances in the holistic athlete experience as an avenue for unobstructed self-expression. And I've thought about that a lot. It's something I'm sharing with the athletes I coach. It's something I'm trying to cultivate in myself. I get chills when I think about Cam Smith and Anna Gibson, who at their core, I think, are driven by things like joy and adventure and curiosity and excellence. And by focusing on those forms of unobstructed self-expression, what's manifested is top world-class performances in the Olympics and the trail running world championship, on the track, and so forth. I could go on all day about this, but you're going to get it in the interview. This is really special stuff. You're going to hear about the backstory between Cam and Dr. Pete Kadushin. They've known each other for a long time. In some ways, this here interview is like 15 years in the making, and I'm so excited to share it with you. I'm also excited to share our sponsors with you. We are working hard every single day to get these episodes out, and we couldn't do it without some partners that are really making a difference. The uphill skiing experience, it starts with your skin. sticking to the snow, and that's Pomoka skins. These pink ones right behind me. They work well. They look cool when you flip them off in the in the transition zone. Check those out, Pomoka skins. Also check out Dynafit, head to toe. This is what I'm wearing out there every day. I have one set of kind of soft shell windproof stuff that I usually wear ski touring, and then I have another hard shell jacket and pant, typically that I'm wearing for downhill skiing, but also for, ski touring if it's especially cold and windy or there's heavy wet snow. I wear this stuff every day, all winter long, and a lot of the stuff in the summer as well. I also use Training Peaks every day. This is the industry leading platform for planning and tracking and communicating in endurance training and coaching. Whether you're an athlete or a coach or both like me, check it out at trainingpeaks.com/Skimo Gold. Sign up for a free trial today. Revanta creatine by NeuroReserve has become a daily component of what I put into my body. I'm really, as a child of someone with Alzheimer's, I have concerns, and I think you can relate if you're in that category. Like, man, this thing gets on your mind, and you really want to support your own brain health. That's why I take Revanta creatine by NeuroReserve every single day. I also use camp products almost every day. Check them out for alpinism, mountaineering, skimo, trail running, packs, climbing gear, and more. Camp, fantastic brand from Italy. That's where the Olympics are. That's where camp's from. All right, folks, that's enough for me for now. I hope you enjoy this super special conversation with Cam Smith and Pete Kadushin as much as I have. Time to roll on Skimo Gold. Cam Smith, Dr. K, wow, so great to be here with both of you today for the Skimo Gold podcast. We were talking a bit before recording. It's a busy time for everyone. It's always a busy time. Anyone. That's the basic response. How are you doing? I'm busy. I think that's a mindset we need to move away from. We do have Cam Smith here day before heading to Europe. We're recording here early January. Cam's heading over to those World Cups and then the Olympics. So he does have a lot going on. Cam, thanks for joining us. You're fresh off the slopes there in Crested Butte. And Pete Kadushin, Dr. K, great to have you here as well. Someone who I've known, I think it's 11 years right now. Your current role, I think your main gig, you are the manager of learning and development for the Chicago Blackhawks. That is a hockey team, folks, a pro hockey team. This is big time stuff. Formerly the mental performance coach for the Blackhawks. And you also have a thriving practice with mental performance coaching. This is athletes, it's age groupers, it's Olympic level athletes, and also business leaders and decision makers. I was reviewing your website, Dr. K. You talk about accelerated growth, grace under pressure, and strategic evaluation. Those are kind of some of the, I guess, foundations for principles that we're going to get into today as we try to share with the audience, tips on developing your Olympic mindset, ladies and gentlemen, for your own athletic endeavors, for your business, for your parenting, for your relationships. We want to get into all that. And this is going to be my longest talk of the podcast, I promise. I got to share with the audience and with you two my first memory of Dr. K. I think it was 2015. My book, The Ultra Mindset, had just come out. I was invited to go to Western Colorado University over there in Gunny, the one and only. And someone set up this lecture for me. So my co-author and I came. We had our book, book signing, do the talk, go through the slides, etc. And we got there. We're in this auditorium. You probably remember it, Dr. K. Something was a little off with the marketing, and I think there was a competing event. I can't remember what it was. But long story short, there I am on stage, and there's 4 people in this entire lecture hall. Me and my co-author are on stage. Sitting there in the audience is my wife, Amy, and the one and only Dr. K. And I didn't really know, I don't know if we talked beforehand or not, but, I didn't know that you were a PhD, in this exact topic. And here I am, going through all my stuff about the ultra mindset. And man, Pete, you listened patiently. I turned on, I almost, I had those thoughts. I'm like, there's one person here. Like, should I even do this? And I'm like, do this. Like, this is ultra mindset, baby. Do your talk. So we did it. Me and my co-author, John Hance, we nailed the talk. And Pete, you listened. And then we talked afterwards. And, we've been sort of friends and colleagues since then. And it's been great. And I think that's where Cam Smith here comes in. I think I was doing the math, Cam. I think you probably would have been 19 or 20. You were a student at Western. And I've heard that it may be something to the effect of, did you take every single class that Dr. K taught or something like that? Like, Cam has a champion mindset, folks. And here's where it started. It started in Dr. K's classroom. Cam, what do you remember about that period?
Yeah, it was every class or close to every class. I think it was 21 credit hours. So it was a semester and a half worth of taking Dr. Kadushin classes, as I am used to calling him. And yeah, it was like I studied exercise science, which is what Pete was teaching. And then I just wanted to take all the sports psychology classes. I thought it was fascinating. And Pete was the maestro for all that. So I just kind of followed him wherever the curriculum took both of us. And it's really fun to have these intersections, all three of us, and being a big Blackhawks fan growing up in Illinois. It's cool to have these intersections that we're all meeting in this fun Venn diagram, and really cool to have you here, Pete. So thanks for joining us.
I'm so excited to be here. And Travis, I think they were giving away free beer somewhere in Gunnison when that talk was going on, right, and that was the issue. It was right at the end of the growler, and so everybody was tired and had eaten a lot of bacon and wanted to wash it down with some beer. And Cam, it'll never happen again. You lined up like every class I offered, even just one semester. It's just like your path lined up, and then you were a glutton for punishment. You think about where maybe some of that endurance was born. Putting up with 21 credit hours of me is a true feat of endurance. But yeah, just you both, I hold you both in such high esteem as performers, right? And you're like absolute dragon slayers in your respective sports. And at the same time, what really stands out in all of the interactions we've had is the type of people you are. And so to get to spend an hour with you guys today is like I said before we hit record, this is the highlight of my day.
Well, thanks, man. We sure appreciate you joining us.
Now, should we just jump right in?
Let's do it. Yeah. How do we, here we are, part of the Olympics coverage for Skimo Gold, developing your Olympic mindset. Dr. K, what should we know, man?
Yeah, so I have a few strategies, and then we'll let them breathe. We'll give them some space so that you guys can fill in the gaps from your direct experience, because you have the direct experience of going through the process of training and then competing at the highest levels. And so where I'd love to start is, I think, the highest order principle, and one that we often get tangled up. It's going to sound really simple, but it's a simple question of, how do I want it to go? And so if you're thinking about a training session, if you're thinking about a particular competition, if you're thinking about a season or a career, right? Asking that question, how do I want it to go, is really potent. And it's not surprising. If you go back to like the late 80s, they did some research in sports psychology with Olympic athletes. And they found that Olympic athletes, compared to other competitors, were way more likely to use visualization. And I think separate from the benefits of visualization as a practice, right? What it's asking you to do up front is explore this question of, how do I want it to go? And anybody who's spent time on skis or has been in the saddle on a mountain bike knows that what you put your attention towards is where your body gets drawn, right? And the same thing happens with our mind. And so we end up thinking a lot about what we don't want to have happen, or potential threats, ways that things could go wrong. And there's a natural negative bias that we have as human beings, because survival is really important. So we're hardwired to remember or focus on the negative, right? The first time you touch a stove that's hot, you want that to be the last time you touch a hot stove, right? But what that means is that we have to be really purposeful about thinking about what's on our path and not what's off the side of the path in the ditch. And so it's simple, but it's not easy. And what this can look like, and you mentioned strategic evaluation. But I like to expand that practice out to really cover sort of the reflection and the time you might spend as a performer uh, in a quiet space with a notebook or your computer or what have you, really considering how things have gone, but also then that forward focus of how do you want it to go. And so the practice in this is to really set aside the time to think about, and this could be part of your preparation routine as you're gearing up or warming up for training or for competition. But especially for big competitions, you'd want to extend this out and you'd want to be thinking about a month out, 2 weeks out, really thinking about how do I want the experience to unfold? And the important piece here for me is like, I'm not saying that we want to get really hyper focused on I want to win and then get really attached to I need to win, right? But instead think about how do I want to show up? How do I want to be? What is the experience I want as I'm competing, leading up to, afterwards? Right? Because that's way different. Like, of course, I guess, usually an athlete is there to win the competition, to make the team, right? To have the best training day they can. Right? And so the outcome is important, right? But this is a lot about, well, so what do I want to achieve? But also, how do I want to be and what do I want the experience to be like while I get there? Because there are plenty of people out there that win and were miserable doing it. Right? And that creates a really tough spiral where you get the outcome, but the experience sucked. And then you're kind of stuck chasing the really brief and fleeting high of winning, as opposed to being able to look back and go like, whether I won or whether I didn't, right? I was present. I was connected with my teammates. I was with the beautiful, in Skimo, you're with the beautiful space that you're in as you're training and competing. And so this ends up being something that I think we should schedule regularly and that we can train the mind to get into the habit of. And it really is a practice because I can do this for months in a row. And if I fall off this practice, I notice that I'm thinking about all the ways that things could go poorly. And that's, again, because of that natural bias is going to be the thing that we are drawn to if we're not actively going, all right, what do I want it to look like? How do I want it to feel? What is really drawing me towards this experience and getting me excited? Where's the possibility, that energy of, oh my God, wouldn't it be amazing if? And so that's number one for me. And I'd love for you guys to jump in and share a little bit about how that lands for you.
This makes me think a lot about a mutual friend of ours, Kirsten Cooper, who guided me along post ACL surgery and during my comeback from a subsequent shoulder injury. And she was the first sports psychologist that I had worked with in a professional capacity. So I'd taken all these classes and read all these books, but this is the first professional that I'd worked with in a one-on-one relationship. And I was like, okay, like I'm excited for this. Like she's going to help me win, which is the number one thing. And so we have our first few appointments. And I'm like, why are we spending so much time talking about my childhood and so much time talking about my post-career plans and whether or not I want to do this and should I think about retirement? Like she's the leading expert to me on transitioning into retirement as a pro athlete and has some really good personal experiences too. And we're going to get her on the podcast at some point here too, and people will hear from her. And I was getting really frustrated. I'm like, Kirsten, I want you to tell me how to win. Like, I don't want to talk about my feelings. And it circled back probably 4 or 5 sessions later and through some hard work of like, okay, well, like, so if you want to compete so badly, like, well, why? And she tore that all down and was trying to figure out like, well, why am I so intent on doing this? And it came down to a values exercise and talked about enjoying the pursuit of excellence and the adventure that I find from being able to travel to these places and take on these challenges and meet people and the joy that comes from the beautiful moments when they do work out, and how those fleeting moments are worth putting everything into when they come around to experience that just once a season or whatever it may be. And so, like, working back from these injuries, she had sort of built up this scaffolding for really tearing it down to why I was doing it, which ended up not being winning. It was winning was the way I was pursuing these things. And is it Jim Murphy that wrote Inner Excellence? Am I thinking of the right book? There's a guy that wrote about, well, like if you're if you're pursuing that joy and that adventure and that excellence through winning, well, why not just go for those things directly? Like, not, okay, I won, which means I found excellence. Like, why not just go directly for the joyful moments and the excellence? And so that was sort of a next step from the scaffolding that Kirsten built of like, well, what am I doing with pursuing performance? And that, I think, going into this Solitude World Cup that we've both, or all three of us have talked about, it was really about a pursuit of just trying to find that level of excellence with my teammate Anna and race well. And I think the best example that I just love telling the story of is that when Anna's coming through for her first lap to hand off to me, we're 2 spots behind Canada. We're in 4th overall, and we're objectively not where we need to be. But Anna had just thrown down a great lap, and I was feeling super confident about what was to come, and we weren't worried about who was ahead of us, who was behind us. Like, I was watching Anna race and watching her skin up towards me and knowing like, oh, we're doing it. Like, we're having a great race. And so in the heat of the moment, when we're behind our goal, Anna's cheering for me and I'm cheering for her as we're like coming together for the handoff. And I think that that's just such a cool example of like, we really just were there to race our best. And I think that really cleared our minds in the heat of the moment from worrying about what other people were doing. And we weren't evaluating the outcome and distracting ourselves from doing anything other than performing in the moment. And it really comes down to the scaffolding that Kirsten Cooper built with like, well, why are we doing this? Do you want to win, or do you want to pursue excellence and joy and adventure? And because it's the latter, it really helped us execute in the moment and find the thing that I thought I was looking for all along, which was winning and and have the beautiful moment there. Yeah, so that's what was on my mind as you were talking through kind of the starting with why.
Yeah, I love that Coop is with us in spirit. She's also a dragon slayer.
Yeah.
And what stands out to me here is like, you, in the time that we've interacted, like, I didn't know that you were an actual assassin when it comes to endurance sports, because you present as joy, right? And connection, right? You're not like a 800-pound gorilla who's beating his chest and talking about how you're gonna, dominate the competition. And I have no doubt, right, that the quiet killer in you, like, you want to win. And I think this is something that we often mix up in my field. And then athletes internalize is like, I don't need to care about the outcome. I just need to sell out on the process. Right. And I think that committing to the outcome, wanting to win, you're wanting to be your best, like, that is the price of admission, right? You have to be willing to be blown to smithereens and shattered on the back end if you don't get what you want. And that unlocks your ability to be totally grounded in the process and to not have it interfere when you're in the middle of a race that you have to beat Canada in order to qualify for the Olympics. And so that ability to acknowledge that winning is in there, right? But to recognize that you don't need to win to get the experience you want. You can actually get the experience you want and now they'll serve winning, I think, is a huge shift. And it's one of the most transformational pieces of the work that I get to do is like, if it's contingent on the outcome changing and being what you want, it's contingent on the conditions being right. If it's contingent on anything like that, then we've given away some of our power. Right. But if I can make the shift, if you can say, I'm going to seek adventure and joy, and I know that's available to me independent of everything else, that gives you the opportunity then to take the steps and have the mindset that allows you to then race your best race. And that in turn then gets you closer to the outcome you want. And so it's beautiful.
Yeah. And like, there was so much pressure coming into that moment, and so many people had done so much to put us in that position, and it was a really objective, are we going to get this job done or not, in front of our home crowd after people have put so much time, money, energy into putting on this race, putting on NI in position to succeed. And going back to like the coaches that raised us in youth sports of like, it was just such, and our families and our friends of it's just such a build to be in that moment. And it was like, man, there's so many people that want us to accomplish this goal right now, but we knew that if we just raced our best and raced hard and did everything we possibly could, that everyone would be proud of being part of the journey. And I think
Mhm.
knowing that in the days going in, that let us get some more sleep, that let us have some more fun, that let us joke around more, and then our minds were just so much more clear when the moment came, and then the race was executed the way that we dreamed up.
Wow. It's so rich, guys. Cam, I love the story. You're taking me back to watching that solitude race on the edge of my seat. Pete, you asked this question, how do I want it to go? And then both of you, the key word I heard was feeling. And for me, this comes a bit from the first time I've read about it, but it's the same thing you're saying, Pete. I read about it in a book called Seed of Dreams by a guy named Chip Richards, who was a longtime coach of the Australian alpine ski team. And he's now become a friend and mentor of mine in personal development and spirituality and natural connection. And the way Chip talks about outcomes is really, it's the nuance of both. It's the performance based outcomes, and that's, when I think about me as a high school athlete and the coach said visualize, man, I got into it and I'm walking through and I'm going through every step and every lap of my 1600-meter race. What is the pace? What am I going to hit? And what's it gonna, if I want to run 440, what are those splits along the way? And I'm thinking about that performance. And I think that's great as an athlete, because we do need to think those through. We gotta, Skimo, you gotta practice your transitions a million times and have it dialed. And what I was missing at the time was the feeling based outcomes. And Pete, to use your word, that's where we have power. If we can sit down with strategic planning and say, these are the feelings that I'm going to bring to a process, to an experience, to a race, and these are the feelings that I'm going to pull from it. That's stuff that we can control, in many ways, regardless of the circumstances, of the place, of, the messed up, your ski falls off, right? It gets kicked out of the way. Like, we can still control those feelings. And I think that's what Cam and Anna harnessed, whether it's, in that handoff where you're both in that feeling. A great feeling that I've seen you both embrace, Cam, is connection and a collective experience. I can tell that that's something that drives you. I know that that's something that really drives and motivates me. I think about our interviews with Max Drion. He's highly driven. This is a podium contender in the Olympics from Belgium, by team. And that team feeling really motivates him. And what's cool is these feelings, sometimes you think, oh, this is touchy feely, like just focus on, whatever, the drive, the gorilla, right? That kind of stuff. If you get the feelings right, those are going to drive performance, and I think in some ways it's like even maybe just as important as, whatever the VO2 max and all these workouts and this and that. Like, it's the feeling. What feelings are we cultivating and bringing that generates, the performance? So anyway, I could go on and on, but yes, feeling based outcomes, as I've really tried to um just focus on that, it's really helped me. It's helped my performance, but it's also just helped, again, to overuse the word, how I feel during a process. And then final point, I think, when I watch today Pogacar, the best cyclist of all time, what I love when the Pog wins is he looks happy. Like, I truly, he's happy. Like, he's happy that he won. He's happy that he rode hard. He's just happy. And when a lot of athletes, we see them win, and it's relief. And yes, maybe we all feel some of that, but like, boy, if I can have the choice, what feeling do I want to cultivate? When that performance comes together, whether it's the win or the podium or the PR or just a good day out there, let's go for happiness. Like, not just relief, but let's cultivate happiness.
Yeah, and if you ask an athlete, would you like to be the best you can be, or would you like to win? Right, the answer is I'd like to actualize my potential. Right, most of the time, I think. And for me, I draw a lot from Josh Waitzkin's work. And so, he was the one who tuned me in a podcast I listened to, that idea of you have to be willing to be shattered in order to by the outcome, in order to commit to the process. But his definition of peak performance for me is really telling, which is unobstructed self-expression, right? So if Cam is the essence of joy, then being joy while skiing is going to allow you to be more unobstructed in your capacity to be present and totally shiny, totally fulfilled in your presence in that moment, right? And so for some of us, it's joy. Others, it's love. For some, it's connection, right? You hear a lot about athletes who what they miss when they finish isn't holding the Stanley Cup over their heads, although that's nice. It's the little moments in the locker room with the guys after practice, right? Being in community, being a part of that team. And to your point, Travis, we sit on a nuclear reactor of energy, right? A volcano of potential that's inside of us. And none of that lives in between our ears. Thoughts might help us access that, right? But they can also block us from it, right? What happens below our neck and in that system of feeling and sensation, right? And spirit, like that's where the actual energy is. And if you need to unleash that for a performance or for a really challenging day and training, right? The way to do that is to find the sensation in the feeling. Again, thoughts can point us there, but you can cut through that noise by sitting and saying, how do I want to feel? Right? How do I want this to go? What's the experience I want as I'm training today? Do I want it to be joyful? Do I want it to feel really sharp and focused? Do I want to have it feel really expansive? Or do I want to feel really heavy and be like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to do today, which is going to then lead tomorrow. And if I have a tough day today, then 2 weeks from now, this isn't going to work out. And some of that's a choice, right? We don't always get to track in on exactly how we want to think and exactly how we want to feel. But this question of how do I want it to go is going to at least point us in the direction. And that's going to be meaningful enough to get more out of today so that you can then continue to build towards tomorrow. And this fits really well with one of the other strategies that I have. And it's kind of a cheating one because it's like two bundled together, which is work towards being present and embodied. And so the present moment is the only place where performance can happen. Right? From like a truly, well, as far as we know about metaphysics, right? This is the only moment. And so you can't perform in the minute that happened just a second ago, and you can't perform a second in the future. And so for athletes to cultivate that capacity for presence and being with what arises, because getting present can be a challenge, but like we can all, if I snap my finger, we can all be present to the sound of that finger snap. What bounces us out of the moment is showing up and being like, man, this moment sucks, right? My legs hurt, my lungs burn, I'm not in the place I want to be. And so this presence is really a twofold piece. It's being present and accepting of whatever's present. Not complacent too, right? If you're 2 spots back from Canada, not going like, well, this is just the way it is, right? But saying this is the reality and the facts of the situation. And I can be present to that and also have access to my joy and my connection. And so cultivating that presence and the practice in this strategy for me is always meditation. And there's a lot of different ways to meditate. You can meditate while doing the dishes or folding the laundry, right? The traditional Vipassana practice is to sit and pay attention to your breath. Right? There's a ton of different ways. Yoga, many athletes meditate while practicing and training. Right? But the two pieces that come with this practice are you need to be present to what's happening right now. And then you need to work towards accepting whatever's here, knowing that it's going to change. And so whether it's sitting with your breath and every time you get distracted, you come back to the direct sensations of your breath, and then you get distracted and you come back to the direct sensations, or, if you're training and you're on your skis, being really present to the sensation of your skis in the snow, or the breath moving through you, or what have you, or even just noticing the thoughts that drift through your head without getting attached. And every time you get distracted by a thought or oh God, what if, you just come back to the present moment. That ends up being, I don't want to oversell it and call it a cheat code for this, but like we think about flow and really falling into our peak performances, right? Like one of the necessary ingredients of flow is being so immersed in the experience that the doer dissolves and there's only the doing. Right? So being in the zone requires presence. Why not train that so that it's more likely to show up? And the second piece of this, right? So we've got the presence and acceptance bundled together. And then the next piece is that, going off of what I just said, that you can't live neck up because that's not actually where all of our power is. Right? And so the embodied quality of this, right? That we need to start to train or continue to cultivate our capacity to be with our bodies as we're going through this process. And a lot of athletes listening might be like, well, yeah, I pay attention to form and technique and all of that stuff. That's thinking about our bodies. I'm talking about being in our bodies, right? And so for me, there are 3 touchstones that we can work off of that I've stolen from Joseph Goldstein, who helped found the Insight Meditation Society. Joseph Goldstein points to temperature, pressure, and movement. And so for listeners, you could pause right now and you could tune into wherever you notice in your body. So if you're sitting down, you notice the pressure of your butt in your seat, right? Or the shift as you breathe in the way that your clothes relate or how your organs are moving, right? You can tune into temperature. Where do I feel hot? Where do I feel cold? Where does it feel neutral? Right? And then movement. And movement is one that lives in the world of the athletics, right? In that we can be really attuned not to, is this movement good or bad, right or wrong, but instead just noticing the body and the sensations of movement as it happens. And the reason why I think this is so important, and especially for a sport like Skimo, is because you need to have like an ultimate sensitivity to how much is enough right now and how much is too much. Right. And so, and this is true. You think about the sort of the cardinal mistake in any race is going out too hard because you're amped, or when you're feeling really good, being like, I'm going to empty the tank right now. And then there's inevitably going to be a down to go with that up. And then you get to the bottom of the down and you're like, oh God, what happened? And whether it's the beginning of the race, middle of the race, the kick at the end, when we practice and cultivate this capacity to be embodied and present, then we just have a better sensitivity to how close to the line can I get without going over and blowing up? When do I need to step it back and take some breaths and slow it down so that I can downregulate and stash some energy? And without being able to do that, I think we're leaving performance on the table. All right, that was a lot. I'm going to turn it back over to you guys so I can hear from the guys who've done the work and have lived the direct experience.
And thanks to DinaFit and Pomoka for supporting the Skimo Gold podcast. I'm a long way from the Olympic level, but like many of you, I love getting out there skiing, downhill skiing, uphill skiing, in the resort, out of the resort. And literally every day that I'm skiing, the layers that are facing the environment for me are DinaFit. I've got DinaFit hard shell pants and jacket that I wear out on my downhill days or on the touring days when it's really cold. And I've also got a touring pant and jacket that I wear literally every single day when I go up there at the high elevation Monarch Mountain. It starts at 11,000 feet and goes up from there. It's pretty much always cold and windy, and I'm glad to be wearing DinaFit when I'm out there in those conditions.
Pete, so much good stuff again. Joseph Goldstein, I'm glad you mentioned. Listeners, go on YouTube, put in Joseph Goldstein guided meditation. You'll get a million of these options. Pete, I stumbled across this during concussion recovery when I was truly forced to meditate a whole bunch because it was like, literally hours a day. It was my only option for calming the overactive nervous system. But it stuck around because this is a superpower in my athletics, in my relationships, in my presence. Not that I have all these things figured out, but it's made more than anything. It's such a tool. I put links to guided meditations from Joseph Goldstein in Training Peaks for my athletes because this is such an important tool. So yeah, man, it's great. And my brief question, yes, we make this this presence a practice, as you said, day in and day out, meditating, doing it while we're training, gaining these tools. we want to have that a practice. Do you also recommend, is there a routine race morning or on the starting line? Maybe it's just a mantra to gain that presence in the moment, or is it more of the ongoing practice is really the key?
With any practice, whether it's physical or mental, right, that we develop the capacity over time by training. And so what was first like, bushwhacking through the thick jungle, eventually becomes a little footpath. And as we continue to tread that path over and over again, it gets wider and easier. And eventually you've got to, it's paved and you're just cruising. Or if you prefer trails, it's just a beautiful, pristine Gunnison Valley trail. And so it's more available to us if we've trained this over the course of months or years. And in the moment, it's really dependent on the athlete, what the mantra might be like. For me, what helps trigger this is just telling myself, this is it. And it's not a ultimatum like, oh, this is it. If I don't perform right now, instead, this is it right here. This is the only moment. And there's an opportunity, even as my heart is in my throat and I can feel my heartbeat like everywhere and I'm short of breath, to go like, this too, right? This is what it's like to be alive and vital and in it. And this is the only place that this happens. And so it shifts from avoidance. I got to do something to make this go away, right? Let me think about all the training I did and pump my own tires. Let me breathe in a certain way to make this feeling go away. And there's nothing wrong with any of that, as long as it's not from avoidance. But if I can't handle the moment, and this comes back to your point about grace under pressure. If I can't handle the moment, I need to find a way to get out of the experience I'm having. Then I've already set myself up to be defensive, and I'm focused on the ditch instead of the path. If I can look at it and say, hey, this is part of it too. This is it. Right? For me, that allows everything to be exactly as it is. And then from there, I say, okay, now I can breathe in a way that's going to find an optimal activation level for when the gun goes off or when it's time for me to start speaking in a keynote situation or what have you. And so, that's one way, but it's going to resonate differently for each athlete, right? So for others, it's tuning into a direct sensation, right? So I say, this is it. And then that brings me to the direct sensation, but it might be the bottom of your feet. It might be your hands. It could be your breath. It could be looking around, right? Again, Skimo, being in these beautiful places, right? You could just take in the majesty and the wonder of the space that you're in and go, oh my God, this is beautiful. I get to do this here. So there's a ton of avenues in, and it's a call to experiment and find what works for each individual athlete. And one quick plug, if folks are interested in exploring meditation, Joseph Goldstein's amazing, Jack Kornfield, Sharon Salzberg, they're all really great. I also offer a weekly guided meditation that is free. And if you go to drkcoaching.com, drkcoaching.com, you can click the link to sign up for that. It's Tuesday mornings. And so if you're interested in either learning how to practice or deepening your practice, we'd love to have you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And what really resonated with me while you were talking about presence as a general topic is some bad habits that I've really struggled with over time that I think I've recently attributed to, again, life as a sports fan. So I think a habit that I've developed is, again, Chicago sports fan for the most part. I'm used to watching deficits slowly grow until a disappointing finish to the end of the game, regardless of the sport, except for the 2016 World Series Game 7 that Pete and I watched together in a bar in Gunnison.
Oh, yes.
And I think I've built this habit of, okay, I'm watching the game. My football team that I'm cheering for is down by 10. So it's like, okay, we really need to score here, and then they'll get a 3 and out, and then we'll score again. And I'm constantly evaluating like this, and then that, and then that, and then that, and then we get the outcome that we want. And that habit, I think, led into my racing, where I'd be having a poor race, I'd be behind where I want to be, and I'm like, okay, I just need to do this in this section. I need to like hold a strong run up this hill, and then I need to have a really good transition here, and then maybe hope that person bobbles a little bit or like takes a bad turn around that gate, and then I can catch up, and then I'm back to even, and then I can strike from there. And it's like I'm constantly evaluating what's going on and what things could happen next to put me in the position where I wanted to be. And I think those things led to each other. It was a really well-worn path in my head of watching other people compete, competing myself. It's this habit that I had developed over decades. And I think what's really shifted recently is that emphasis on not evaluating the current situation as good or bad and just what it is. So, okay, we're 2 spots behind where we need to be. That's it. Not, oh, we're 2 spots where we need to be behind where we need to be. Oh, shoot. I better hustle here, and then do this and do that. Just like seeing the situation in the race and then stopping there. I'm like, okay, we're in this moment. Let's race. Let's keep going. And that shift has really brought a lot to my racing and a lot to the rest of life too. And then it's also why watching, let's keep talking Chicago sports, watching the Bears this season, why they keep coming back in the fourth quarter. Because while I'm watching the game and controlling the outcome of what's happening, I keep just thinking about the current play. And then you just keep seeing the team make these miraculous comebacks under pressure. And it has to do directly with where my mindset is while watching the game. So I'll take some credit for that as well. Yeah.
And this is some pushback that I get when I'm teaching mindfulness practices is like, well, if I'm in the moment all the time, then, I'm just going to get blown about by, the moment by moment, and I'll never have an opportunity to plan and do the thing. And my counter argument is always there's a time for planning, right? But then you're present to the act of planning, and then that's your present moment. Right? And so it's not that having a race plan or calculating and looking at objectively, hey, well, I'm 2 places back, right? That's not useful. But if it's obscuring you from the present moment, right? If you're running all the scenarios in the supercomputer between your ears while you're also trying to make a transition or while you're trying to ski your best, right? You're setting yourself up for failure because you're trying to do too many things at once. And so that freedom to, and it's so natural, right? That this is part of feeling safe, is knowing what to expect. And so we do this all the time, right? When it comes to expectations, we're doing all this future casting, right? Whether it's, all right, I have this much time left before lunch and here's what I'm going to eat and all, like from that all the way to if all of these things fall into place with my training plan, I'm going to be feeling my best when it's Olympics time, ready, set, go. And so there's nothing wrong with it until it gets in the way. And what I've seen with a lot of athletes, and there's a great anecdote from the book Endure by Alex Hutchinson, where it required a total mess up in translation of his split times as a college distance runner to blow through a plateau, because all of the mental calculations he had done over the course of I think it was 18 months of getting closer and closer to breaking that plateau, but never getting through, were actually holding him back. His physical and mental capacity was far beyond that. He dropped 30 seconds in the next 3 races after that and qualified for the Canadian national team. But in that moment, all of those expectations and here's what I think could happen, right? And to translate that into the scenario you just shared, Cam, right? If you're going through okay, I need him to do this, and then I need this, and then, right, you've created this rigid set of conditions for how the only way you could then get to where you want to go, when who knows what physically you have left in the tank, who knows what other people are going to do. And so we create this artificial ceiling with our expectations. And what I'm hearing you say is that by noticing it and then letting it go and coming back to the present moment, right, you give yourself the best chance to have the best race independent of all of those other conditions. And that's a superpower.
Yeah, I think what that makes me think of is, Travis, you brought up mantras. Of something that's stuck with me is the mantra, I expect nothing, but I'm prepared for anything. Then before and during the race, it really helps me go in with more of a curiosity than an expectation. So, okay, here's the situation. I'm behind where I need to be. I wonder what will happen next. I'm just going to focus on executing this movement and doing what I can, and I wonder what will happen next, instead of constantly calculating what's happening. Is this good? Is this bad? And being caught up in all that. and bringing that curiosity from a standpoint of, I wonder and what's possible and what can I do here and what will happen next, as opposed to trying to project that expectation, has really brought a lot of presence to the moment in the race for me. And again, just really, it's really just all about whatever you can do to maintain your focus. And this has just been like an incredible tool for keeping that focus where it needs to be. And then the performance takes care of itself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love Judd Brewer in his book, Unwinding Anxiety, talks about the difference between interest curiosity and deficit curiosity. And deficit curiosity is, hey, I'm 2 spots back. What do I need to do, right? I'm trying to fill a narrow gap to solve a problem. And if you're doing math, great, right? If you're a chemist, important to have that type of curiosity, right? But what it ends up doing is creating those rigid structures, and I'm only looking for the answer in the bounds of the space that I already am aware of. Whereas interest curiosity, right? I wonder what will happen next, is expansive and open, and the answer can come from anywhere. And how this pairs with meditation for me is that our thoughts have this false power that while they're unexamined, right, all of those expectations and the narrative you create about what you need to do to close the gap feels real, and it will drive your attention, it'll drive your energy, and it'll help manifest that outcome in one way or another. When we examine our thoughts, and this is part of what happens in meditation, is we get to see how our mind is and have some space from it. That when we do that, all of a sudden you recognize that thoughts don't actually have the power that we think they do. And so it's this kind of like the boogeyman under the bed phenomenon, where until we look, right, we can be really scared, we can really be driven away from or towards something and be totally hooked and captured by this daydream that we have happening constantly. And again, nothing wrong with it, because that's human. But as soon as we're willing to pause, slow down, and then take a look in the present moment, you're like, well, that could happen, but there's a lot of other things that could happen too. Let me choose what's most empowering and productive right now, instead of unconsciously just being driven by whatever the story is that's happening. I've got one more for you, and it actually fits directly with what we're talking about, which is that building this Olympic mindset, we can think about what it would be like to be our own best coach. I really like this because the way that we would be with someone else if we were trying to get their best performance is often fundamentally different from the way we're willing to treat ourselves. And anybody listening, if you think about the way that you talk to yourself, right, you're going to say some really vile things, or at least if you're me, you'll say some really vile things about yourself, right? There's some real dark corners in there for me. And I would never treat anybody else like that. And so what this does, this question of what do I need to do to be my own best coach, creates some space. It externalizes that relationship so that you could think about, okay, me as an athlete, me as a performer, me as a person, how would I want to treat that person if it wasn't me? And from there, you can start to consider like, okay, leading up to a big race, how would I want someone else to talk to me? Can I talk to myself a little bit more like that? What type of space and opportunity would I want to afford myself? Can I offer that to myself just like I would offer it to somebody else? And this isn't about being relentlessly positive or, washing away whatever negatives come up. Because sometimes, right, the most productive thing is to give myself a kick in the ass and tell myself, I know I've got more in the tank, right? And sometimes that can be pretty flavorful in the way that I speak to myself. Right. But it's productive in the moment, and it's coming still from a place of compassion, as opposed to the ways that I treat myself when I'm not paying attention. And so, again, going back to this idea of creating reflection time where you can sit down and do this concretely and have a quiet space where you can really be focused and present to it. Right. The practice would be sitting down and considering what would that look like for you to be your own best coach. The cool byproduct of this is it also gives you the opportunity to then empower the coaches that you have. Because now all of a sudden you've uncovered, you say, okay, I think I really respond to this type of feedback in this moment, but maybe this type of feedback, 6 to 8 to 12 hours afterwards. And, I think I really like to be spoken to like this. And I think that's going to help unlock my capacity in a race. And from there, you can then have a conversation with coach and not say, hey, this is the only way this has to go, but have them also reflect back what they notice about you from an external perspective. And that can then strengthen your own ability to coach yourself. And it might also unlock something for them in how they coach you. But if we leave this off the table and we're not thinking about it, then we're going to treat ourselves the way we normally treat ourselves. And a lot of times that's going to get in the way.
Yeah, thanks for all that. That makes me think directly of inner game of tennis, of self one, self two. And if you think about that, we've done the preparation to perform in the way that we are seeking. And then if you typed out a dialogue of the things that our mind is telling our body, often for many people, especially if you haven't given it proper attention, it looks like the mind is speaking to the body in a way where the mind doesn't trust the body to do what it knows how to do. And it is demeaning and makes the body not trust that movement, right? Like when you say those derogatory things towards yourself, that is putting that self to down and not giving it the trust and freedom to perform the way that you have trained. And so, yeah, paying attention to the thoughts in that way of being your own best coach, I think is an incredible concept. And another piece that makes me think of is also not a direct experience of mine, but listening to a podcast recently between Michaela Schifrin and Breezy Johnson, so two of the best women's alpine skiers in the world, as they're getting ready for the 2026 Olympics, and they won a world championship in the combined event together. And they talked about meeting as kids. This is probably age 11, 12, 13. I can't remember exactly. And Breezy, going through her whole youth sports career, being frustrated with the coaches and people around her that would tell her that she was taking things too seriously and not having enough fun and worrying too much about her performance. And she was like, but I really want to race really well and at my highest level. And I really want to get constructive criticism. And I really want to get this thing just right. And I don't want to play this game right now. I want to do this drill. And for many people, and maybe the majority, especially at that age, they need more fun. They need less pressure. And that sort of has become like, oh, this is how we coach athletes. So then they like it and then they can develop later, which often works and probably works the majority of the time. But for this specific athlete, she thought it was really rewarding and gave her the feeling that she sought of trying to perform at a super high level. And then so when Breezy met Michaela, who is, I think many skiing fans can assume was a very similar young athlete, she's like, thank goodness, like there's someone else out there that understands me, that just wants to race to win and race hard and do our absolute best. And if it goes great, be excited. And if it goes poorly, be motivated for the next one and take that seriously at that level. And then maybe other athletes get there over time and maybe they don't, but meeting that athlete where they are and learning yourself and thinking very, very critically about how can I be my best coach? I think that's an awesome concept and something that just putting one's attention there can lead to such good habits down the road.
Well, and it's a call to coaches that are listening to speak to their athletes, right? And to check in and empower them to consider and create that two-way street, because, the coaching relationship is a sacred one. And what a coach can see is often outside of the frame of what the athlete can see, right? And so it's not to discount their intuition and their hard-fought understanding of how that stuff unfolds. But if you could have a partner in that gets to be in the body that's in the skis and on the race course, and you could empower your athlete to then think through what they need to tell themselves, but also how you might be able to coach them better, right? That just levels up that relationship and makes everybody more capable in the moment, and then also in all the moments afterwards and before.
Hey, folks, this is Travis Macy. I'm the host of the Skimo Gold podcast. Thanks, as always, for listening. When I'm not podcasting about Skimo, most of my time is spent coaching adult endurance athletes. These are runners, cyclists, ski mountaineers, adventure racers, and multi-sport athletes. I do this with Macy Endurance Coaching, and the only platform that's been used at Macy Endurance Coaching for my coaching work and also for my own training for more than 10 years is Training Peaks. You can check out trainingpeaks.com/Skimo Gold to begin a free trial today. You probably know Training Peaks as the industry leader in data insights and analysis. That's very true. I love the data. I love the performance management charts. I love the TSS. All of that is extremely helpful to me. What I also love is just the communication and personalization tools within Training Peaks. When I open up an athlete's calendar, I can see a weather forecast 10 days out of what's the weather, and that's hugely helpful to me. Most of the athletes I coach are in other states, if not other countries. That weather forecast is very helpful. I also love that it allows my athletes to put in notes and segments about their availability, their travel, what they have going on. In this way, the calendar becomes the first and most important back and forth in our communication tools. And then we continue communicating via notes on the workouts themselves, via feedback, via the smiley face scale that athletes can complete after a workout. And it's just it's foundational to me as a coach in personalizing the experience. I could go on, but we want to get back to the episode. So check out trainingpeaks.com/Skimo Gold. Get a free trial today, whether you're an athlete or a coach or both like me. trainingpeaks.com/Skimo Gold. I love it. I love that question. How do we be our own best coach? And I think both of you are talking about the role of specificity from human to human. The way that Breezy thrives athletically and personally is different from, how Cam thrives or someone else. And I think that's so important. And I'm thinking to myself as a coach of athletes or as a parent of my kids, I shouldn't be asking the question, how would I be coached in this situation? No, it's how is this specific person and first person and then athlete, how is this person coached in this situation? And you're right, Pete, that's why the role is sacred. And that's what good coaches and good teachers and good parents and good teammates do is how do I help this person be their best and be their happiest? And that's going to vary from person to person. My question to you, Pete, and this goes a little bit, Cam, you mentioned the art of tennis, I think it was, in the different selves. It reminds me of internal family systems, IFS, this psychological framework in which, within our minds and our psyche, we have different parts. And I think this is a powerful construct. I know it has been for me. Different parts, they can want different things. Sometimes they're opposed to each other. And furthermore, within IFS, Dick Schwartz, who founded it, he says there are no bad parts. They all have a purpose. They all need to be honored. And I think sometimes when we think, okay, I'm going to coach myself, many of us, we have a knee-jerk reaction. Well, it goes to this part. It's this voice. It's the dig-in voice. Or stereotypically for a male athlete, maybe it's my dad, the voice of my dad. What would my dad say? Or it's the voice of my high school basketball coach. What would he say? His kind of voice. And those may be good and helpful voices, but maybe even better would be the self or the true self, the wise self. My question, Pete, is how do we tap into that coaching voice above kind of some of these other ones that may have taken the wheel too much at times? Hopefully this makes sense. What do you think? How do we get to that best personal coaching voice?
It was a real revelation for me when I realized that my dad's voice in my head was actually me talking shit to myself. My dad doesn't do that to me, right? But I had dressed it up because that was the way that my unconscious made sense of it. And then going like, oh, okay, if that's me, then what does that mean about what I'd like to have this shift? And it's a great point. I think internal family systems is beautiful, right? Self 1 and self 2 is a beautiful way to approach this. And the thread of compassion hopefully is really clear to listeners, right? That there's nothing wrong about how we're showing up. And that we can also then, once we've given ourselves permission not to be bad or shameful or wrong for these automatic reactions we have, that we've come by honestly, that we then have the freedom to choose something different. And so it starts there, and like no bad parts is a great way to begin. And then for me, it's a process, one that I think is done best or maybe moves faster with support. Right. So this could be done with a counselor. It could be done with someone like me in a mental performance coaching role. I don't know that it's always appropriate to do this with a coach. One, because coaches are often not trained in this sort of work, but also they're busy coaching you, and that would blend a relationship. But I think that you're always going to go faster with someone else than you are alone in this work. And it's a work that happens over time, right? The layers of this are non-ending, and that's a good thing for me, right? That there's always something new to discover about how we interact with ourselves. And early on, I really believed that I needed the drill sergeant in order to be my best. And it took time of reflecting, like, hey, that works, but it's actually a pretty narrow window of situations where kicking my own ass matters and really counts. And then let me actually reflect honestly and go, okay, that got in the way. And breaking myself down and telling myself I was no good, I needed to run faster, I needed to push harder. Oh, actually, I blew up here. I was demotivated and didn't even want to train here. And over time, one of my guiding stars when I think about work with the clients I work with is if it's working, if it's not in the way, we're not going to screw with it. And so if somebody's drill sergeant isn't actually getting in the way, there's no problem. Right? If there's no problem, there's no problem. And over time, we might discover that, to your point about POG, right, that a lot of athletes, with the drill sergeant might get the outcome they think they want, but still be left empty and unfulfilled. You go, okay, well, so now we've learned that. And what do we do about it? And so this is really a journey that's already started, and one that we can start to do more consciously when we take the time to sit back and go, okay, how do I want to be my own best coach? How have I been coached in the past that's worked for me? Right? Does it work all the time? When do I want to access? Right? For me, I was a wrestler in high school. And so like I still go to that place sometimes when I really need to pour it out at the end of a workout, when I really need to buckle down and focus on deadline. That is a valuable place to go. But it's like hitting the NOS button on my car. I don't actually have NOS in my car, but Fast and the Furious fans out there, stay with me. Right? Like you can't do it all the time or your car will fall apart. And so I've had to learn not to totally cut that part of me out, but know that it has a spot at the table and it shouldn't talk all the time.
It's more examples to me of Dr. Kirsten Cooper being a dragon slayer is that the first race I did post injury, also post beginning to work with her, was a running race in Vail, the Pepe's Face Off, where you have 30 minutes to go up and down a super steep hill as many times as you can. It's nothing technical about it. It's just what kind of fitness are you showing up with and how hard can you push on the day. And it's like at noon or 1 o'clock in June. It's hot, it's steep, it's hard. And on the second to last lap and the last lap, I remember thinking to myself, this race happened on a Sunday, and then my next appointment with her was scheduled for a Tuesday. And I was like, all right, I want to like be able to tell Kirsten how hard I dug, like when things got hard, because she'll be like proud of hearing that. And otherwise, like she'd probably be disappointed to hear like, oh yeah. And then like, even though this is my first opportunity to race in a while, I didn't give it all I could. And I like didn't want to have that conversation. And then so I eagerly report this back to her on Tuesday. And she asked me like, if you had told me that you had backed off a little bit when things hurt really bad, do you actually think I would think less of you or have anything mean to say? I was like, well, no, but it was helpful to imagine that you did, and helpful to imagine how excited I would be to tell you that I stuck with it and won this race through this difficult adversity. And she's like, all right, you know what? If that's what you need, that's great. Let me know when that changes, but I'll meet you where you are and be here for whatever you need. And that, yeah, I think is just an example of everything you're saying, Pete, of she she knew what would get the result that we were looking for collectively, and then met me in that place. And yeah, is just so good at what she does.
She is, and it's a tradition unlike any other. Uh, Everybody gets her name wrong, and so I'm going to call it out right here. It's Kirsten, but I've been actively messing up Kirsten's name, calling her Kirsten or Agatha or Betty for like over a decade now, and so that the joy is still alive and well right here.
Great, she'll love it if this makes it to her, which yeah, we'll make sure to send it her way.
We will make sure it does.
Wow. Well, as we wrap up, guys, yeah, Coop, shout out to you. We're going to find you and get you on Skimo Gold here one of these days. To recap, Dr. K's concepts here for developing your own Olympic mindset. Number one, ask that question, how do I want it to go in terms of both performance and feeling, and also engage regularly, consistently in strategic planning. This, I can imagine this a daily thing, thinking about the day ahead, the workout ahead, the business meeting, I'm thinking back, dinner last night with my family, I was not as present as I wanted to be. And I just I was scattered and I flew into it. I did not plan strategically about how do I want this to go? And I want to do that tonight, for dinner with my family. Point number two was be present and embodied in both your mind and your body. And then finally, number three, be our own best coach and study that and approach it from a sense of curiosity. How do we learn to be our own best coach? And I think, Cam, you kind of touched on this is going to change over time. And that's what's kind of cool. And when I think about me as a 20-year-old athlete and then a 30-year-old athlete and now a, 40-something athlete, that's different. And I also think that's kind of cool. And that's powerful. So embrace that nuance and change over time. Dr. K, man, thanks so much. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your wisdom. Audience, go online, just Google Pete Kadushin. You'll get to his website. Fantastic reference. I love those Tuesday morning weekly guided meditations. Highly recommend that. Either of you guys, anything else we should know or how to follow you online for the listeners?
Cam, go ahead. Oh, it's me. He pointed at me. Yeah, the spot to find me is drkcoaching.com, drkcoaching.com. You can also track me down on LinkedIn. I'm the Pete Kadushin that looks like this. There is another one out there who is like the director of communications for he's in government. And Cam and some students once tagged him on Instagram because I didn't have an Instagram account. So other Pete Kadushin, I know you're out there and I know you're listening. But you can find me there, and I would love to chat if you're interested in exploring more about mental performance and what that all looks like. Reach out. It's my true joy and passion.
And your podcast, Dr. K, is that active?
It sure is. Mental Training Lab. So come take a listen on that too. A number of the concepts that we've talked about have gotten some airtime in solo episodes, and then both of these fine gentlemen have been guests, along with Kirsten Cooper, have been guests on the show as well. So it's all in the family here.
I am also a subscriber and listener. Cam, final thoughts?
Yeah, there's some fantastic episodes there, and everything from these like fun, short 10 to 15 minute solo ones where Pete dives into a topic to having these wide-ranging guests. So really exciting stuff, and I can vouch for Pete just loves to talk this stuff and just loves to help. So if you have some concepts that are resonating and want to ask some questions, I'm sure it would be fun for both of you. And when this comes out, I don't need anyone else to pay any more attention to me than they already are. And I will be holed up in a hotel, probably with my phone off. So I don't, I won't share any Instagram or anything right now, and just want to finish instead with Pete, thanks so much for joining us today. And I'm really excited for people to enjoy and utilize and grow from the concepts you've presented. Thanks so much.
Thank you, fellas. This is a true joy.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Thanks dearly for listening to Olympic Dispatch by Skimo Gold, the premier podcast and YouTube show for ski mountaineering race analysis and interviews. We are working very hard to bring you daily episodes throughout the Olympics period. In fact, we've been working hard on this for months, recording these interviews, tracking down the athletes, organizing the details. It's been a lot, and we're really proud to bring this to you. If you would like to support Skimo Gold, take a minute, whatever podcast player you're on, hit that 5-star review, maybe leave a comment, and even more, share it with a friend. Maybe you're into Skimo and you have other friends who are into Skimo. Share this stuff with them because they're probably going to like it too. And if you're just finding Skimo because you saw it on NBC, you saw it on NPR, you read about it in a magazine or BBC or whatever, welcome to the sport. This stuff is awesome. And whether you become a year-round fan or you're just pumped about it for the Olympics, either way is fine. We're glad to have you along. We want to help you learn about the sport and learn about the athletes and appreciate, gosh, how about these guys? Cam Smith and Dr. Pete Kadushin. I mean, what amazing people. And if you made it this far in the podcast, I guarantee that you have learned some mindset tools and strategies or questions you want to ask yourself that are going to make a difference in your own athletics, business, family, etc. So that's what we're trying to bring to you. You can also support our podcast by checking out our partners. Check out DinaFit. Look for their stuff head to toe on many athletes out there in the Olympics and the World Cups and the Grand Tour races. Also look for DinaFit stuff out there at the resort. Downhill skiing, uphill skiing. The stuff is cool. The stuff is functional. I mean, check out that boot behind me. Like that's a piece of rocket science right there. Carbon fiber, lightweight. If you haven't seen high-end Skimo gear, the skis, the boots, the bindings, you're going to be amazed. It's super cool stuff, and you'll get to see that on the Olympics. You also see the Pomoka skins. The climbing skin is what goes on the bottom of the ski and allows the ski to stick to the snow going uphill. It's kind of like a tire on a bike. It's where the rubber hits the road, and it's important. It's important to have the best. That's why I use Pomoka skins. Check out trainingpeaks.com/Skimo Gold for a free trial on the one platform that I've used for 10 years as an athlete and as endurance coach. It's got industry-leading metrics. It's got fantastic communication tools for coaches and athletes to keep in touch and collaborate and just really personalize the planning. Again, trainingpeaks.com/Skimo Gold, free trials for both athletes and coaches. And if you're already using Training Peaks and you're into Skimo, check out one of their Skimo training plans and get an additional 20% off the annual premium subscription. Please also consider Revanta Creatine by NeuroReserve. There's a lot of junk out there in the supplement space. That said, I think one thing that pretty much everyone agrees on, whether it's the experts or the athletes or, people like me who aren't necessarily scientists, but we read a lot and follow this stuff. Everyone is recommending creatine in terms of, both short-term and long-term brain health and cognition and athletic performance and strength and muscle mass, which, here I am, a middle-aged athlete, right? We're all fighting that curve. We're getting older. That's another reason I take Revanta Creatine by NeuroReserve. Please also consider checking out Camp. Camp has been with Skimo literally since the start of the sport, based there in the mountains of Italy, these awesome small alpine towns where a lot of the Italian Olympians are from. That's where Camp is from. They've been with the sport from the start. They've been with Skimo Gold from the start. We really appreciate them. So check them out, Camp. All right, folks, that's about it for today. Daily episodes coming back. We're hitting you again tomorrow. I was really proud of today's episode. I'm really excited for tomorrow's as well. Tomorrow is about life as a team sport. Skimo as a team sport. We're talking with two guys who have a friendship a coaching relationship, a synergy that has carried them to the Olympics. They have something super special going on. That is Belgium's Max Drione. He's a podium contender in the sprint. He's also he's a super nice guy. I'm so proud of him and stoked for him. And his friend, his on the hill coach and teammate, who's not competing in the Olympics, but man, he is there in person and in spirit. He's part of the team, and this is Pablo Raul. If you're into Skimo, you probably know Spain's Pablo Raul. Check him out on Instagram and YouTube. He's got great content. He is a super high level elite athlete himself. He's a coach, and he's also just someone in this small little Skimo space that we inhabit. He's out there and he's producing really good content. And he's just a great guy. It was really fun for me to get to know him. So we're presenting both of those interviews together because these guys are part of a team. And by golly, life is a team sport, folks. We will catch you tomorrow on Olympic Dispatch by Skimo Gold.